You're 17 years old, it's Christmas Eve, and you're on a flight with your mother. This is one of the first times you've ever been on a plane, and you're going to visit your father. You're excited, you had just graduated high school, and it's Christmas Eve. Everything is on the up and up, and you couldn't be happier. You look around and you take in some of the beige and monochrome settings of an airplane. You see the luggage bins overhead. You see strangers sleeping and snoring in some of the rows behind and next to you. And as you drift into sleep on your mother's shoulder, you're just feeling at peace, safe, comfortable. And the next thing you know, you wake up and you look down and you're still strapped in that seat. But when you look up, there's no more overhead bins. And when you look to the side, your mom's not there. And when you look around, there's no plane anymore. Instead, you see bright, almost obnoxiously bright green leaves, and you hear insects and birds whistling. And for a second, you don't feel anything in your body. You're just confused. You have no idea what happened. You were just sleeping on your mom's shoulder. She was quite literally right next to you, and now she's gone. The first thoughts come running into your brain, where's my mother? And then where's the plane I was just in? And you start to second guess yourself. Was I in a plane? Was it all a dream? But you get brought right back to reality because you're actually in the middle of a rainforest right now. And so your instinct kind of kicks in, and you have no choice but to figure out probably the biggest mystery that you're ever going to be met with in your entire life. And this is the story of Juliane Koepcke. Juliane was the one survivor of the 92 people on the plane that she was on, including her mother, that crashed in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. The pilots of the plane misread the weather system and flew into a thunderstorm, and the plane was struck by lightning at about 10,000 feet cruising altitude. The plane split in half in the sky, and Juliane, as she was strapped in, fell 10,000 feet into the Amazon rainforest and somehow survived, unlike 92 other people. She was the lone survivor. Now, she didn't know all of this at the time. She just was wondering, where's my mom and where's the plane? Every time I think about it, I'm astonished. I can't imagine waking up from a groggy sleep, looking around and being in the same airplane seat that I was in, but the person next to me being gone and the plane being gone. Once Juliane gets her bearings, she starts feeling around her body and realizes that she has suffered a couple injuries. She feels around her shoulder and her collarbone feels messed up, and she has some wounds in her arms, just like open cuts, but she's alive, which she just can't really wrap her head around right now, because she was just in a plane and now she's on the ground sitting in the same row of seats, still buckled in, except for she's 10,000 feet lower than where she's supposed to be. So she does this full body assessment and feels okay enough to unbuckle her seatbelt and get up from the plane seats. And she looks around and takes it all in and realizes she's all alone in the middle of a rainforest. She hears birds chirping and she hears insects and some water flowing in the distance, but no plane noises or anything that would signify the idea that there's other survivors or people around. All she knows is that she was just on a plane, now she's not, and now she's all alone in the middle of a rainforest. As she's looking around, she doesn't see any remnants of a plane crash. She doesn't see wings or the nose of the plane or anything. It's literally as if someone picked her seat up and just placed it in the middle of a rainforest. It was the most bizarre idea ever, but she has no better explanation than that at the moment. So she gets up and she's able to walk, which again is a miracle. Starts walking around and remembers something that her dad taught her when she was younger. And her dad works as a biologist, so he taught her some things about the rainforest and survival in the woods. And he always taught her that if you follow a stream of water or some type of flowing water, you're going to end up seeing people, meeting people, because people congregate and build shelters around flowing water. That's kind of what we've always done. We need drinking water, and so we tend to build camp or shelter around a place of steady drinking water. So once Juliane stands up and realizes that while she's a little bit messed up with the gash in her arm and her collarbone and her head feeling a little foggy, and she realizes she's able to walk, her dad's voice comes into her head, and she immediately knows that wandering around in the rainforest and looking for the plane or even her mom is a fruitless endeavor. And while that's really sad looking back, it was probably the sole reason that Juliane survived not only the plane crash, but survived to live the story of how she made it out of the forest alone. Again, her dad's voice echoed in her head, and she located the small stream of flowing water that she had heard before when she first came to, and she found it, and she started walking, following the stream up and down hills, past trees, hoping that right around the corner there would be a group of people, maybe people camped out, maybe a whole town. She had no idea where she was. So her plan was just to walk, and hopefully in a few minutes to hours she would find some type of community and somebody would be able to help her and tell her what was going on. As she was walking, the sun started setting, and she thought to herself, this is to be expected. I'm in the middle of nowhere, so it's not like I'm gonna just magically find a huge community right next to where I think my plane crashed. There's so many unknowns that she was okay with the idea of having to walk a little bit further, because if the plane did crash right next to a big community or village, there would probably be some attention drawn to it, obviously. So she kind of understood in the moment that she'd probably have to walk a little bit more than one day's worth. And she's also not walking at the fastest pace. She's just survived a plane crash. So she's kind of limping and doing her best, and she's drinking the water from the stream because, as her dad taught her, it's okay to drink moving water. And she's doing everything that a survivalist would tell you to do. However, one day and one night quickly turned into 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9. And over the span of these days, things got bad pretty quickly. The open gash in her arm started getting attacked by insects. Mosquitoes and other bugs started just biting at it and attacking it. They smell blood and they go for it. And that's what they did. They went for it. So as she's walking, she has to swat insects off of her open wound, and she has to continuously put her arm in the flowing water just to try to get some relief, because obviously it hurts and it's starting to get itchy because of all the bugs biting on it, and it's a difficult situation. And this is when panic starts to set in, where she goes, what happens if I can't find somebody? And what do I do about my arm? Because she's not bleeding out, but she starts noticing around day 3 and 4, after all the attention from the bugs, that something is going wrong. Around day 5 of her walk, she knows for sure that something's gone wrong, because she looks down at her arm and sees maggots crawling in between the wound, back and forth between the openings of the wound in her arm. And that's just a repulsive image, but that's what she's facing, and she really has nothing she can do about it. She puts her arm back in the flowing water, hopes it washes some of them off, but she knows there's really nothing to do at this moment. She knows it's infected, but what can you do? You're in the middle of a rainforest. So she just keeps walking in hopes of finding someone to help her. On day 6, she comes upon some of the remains. And this is probably the saddest day for her, because she comes upon her mother's remains. and she sees broken pieces of the airplane and the flight and the pilots, and everything that she thought she would see when she opened her eyes 6 days ago was now torn apart and destroyed, thrown across the forest like trash, completely disregarded, left to sink back in with nature and be forgotten forever. She quickly realizes that no one survived the crash but herself. And this sobering realization for a 17-year-old girl was devastating. She had just lost her mother, and she had nowhere to go other than follow the stream. And so that's what she did. She kept following the stream, and the next day it opened up to a bigger body of water where she found a boat. And she thought, okay, there must be people around here. There's a boat. Awesome. But as she got closer, she realized it was an abandoned, broken down boat that looked like it hadn't been touched in 20 years. But she did find something. She found a can of gasoline. And she remembers her dad teaching her that any infection can be treated with super intense chemicals. So she thinks to herself, why don't I pour gasoline on this wound to kill the maggots? And that's what she does. And can we just take a moment? Like, what a cool girl. The fact that she can survive this. Not a lot of people are built like this or for this, but obviously she was built for survival. So she grabs the can of gasoline, pours it onto her wound, and it burns and stings, and she watches the maggots kind of die away and curl up in balls and fall off. And while it burns, it kind of feels at least freeing that she knows the infection is at least delayed. And this becomes another thing that probably saved her life. Her wound isn't healing, but it's not getting any worse, and the maggots are gone. So she keeps walking down the stream and hoping that she comes up on something, someone that can help her. And nothing on the 9th day. There's just nobody. And then the 10th day, she finds another boat. And this one isn't as beaten up as the first one. It looks like there's some evidence of human life, and it looks like someone had been there recently. So she decides that she's going to take a break by the boat and just wait it out. Because in her mind, there has to be people connected to this boat, and they have to be coming back for it. And she's right. The boat belonged to a few loggers who had a small hut nearby. And when she met up with the loggers, they immediately jumped into action and helped her. They helped her to a hospital to get her wounds checked out. She learned she had a broken collarbone, the gash on her arm, one of her eyes was swollen shut, and a concussion. But other than that, I mean, falling out of a plane and only sustaining those injuries, it's a pretty good trade. I would take that. You know, like I would, if I fell out of a plane and you asked me, what injuries do you want? You got to take a few. I'm probably going to go with those. It's not a bad hand she's dealt. Now, what is a bad hand that she's dealt is the fact that she saw her deceased mother a few days back, and she tells the loggers about it and the people helping her out, and they all call around and they get search parties in immediately. Even though she knows that her mother's gone, she doesn't know if any other survivors could possibly be alive. So a massive search party goes underway, and they're able to recover parts of the plane and the remainders of the people who passed, which was everyone but Juliane. After the search party and the treatment of her wounds, she was reunited with her father, and they mourned the loss of her mother. But she was so happy to tell her dad, hey dad, the only reason that I survived this was because of the things that you taught me when I was a young girl. And her dad cried and she cried, and it was a beautiful moment of tragedy but beauty, knowing that some inconsequential lessons at the time from her father ended up saving her life in a completely literal way. She later returned to Germany, her home country, with her father. She went on to become a biologist of all things. She actually became a scientist to protect the wilderness that arguably tried to kill her. She followed in her dad's footsteps and became a biologist. And that's, I think, a very beautiful part of the story, where she's talked about in interviews since then the panic and the dissociation and all the horrible feelings and memories associated with the event. But she decided to not let that define her and instead allowed it to fuel her passion for biology and saving this ecosystem that arguably saved or tried to kill her. However you really see it is how you're going to see it. So to recap, a 17-year-old girl fell out of a plane from 10,000 feet in the air, still strapped into her seat, landed in the middle of a rainforest, came out with minor injuries for a crash of that magnitude, and walked for 10 days following a stream on advice from her father that she received years before when she was much younger, and eventually happened to come upon some helpful people who brought her to safety, and she sort of lived happily ever after. Obviously, she's had to deal with a lot of the mental health issues that are associated with catastrophic events like this, but all in all, she's been a net benefit to the world. And that's the insane story of the plane crash and survival of Juliane Koepcke.